The embassy is an entry gate into one's country. You're moving in there either for diplomatic reasons or for businesses or for immigration, for citizenship. It's the entry gate.
The U.S. Embassy is a place where parents come to get the passport for their firstborn child. It is a place where Saudi students potentially engage a U.S. citizen for the very first time on their way to school to the United States. It is a place where social organizations and conversations occur in the ambassador's residence. It is a place where very sensitive negotiations between the country occur.
Our goal is to build safe, secure, functional, and representational facilities worldwide. In every country, we are thinking first about our people, our personnel, and we have to keep them safe, and we have to provide them a functional facility that will make the very important diplomatic work that they do possible. We also want to make these facilities representational.
We're responsible for providing the diplomatic platform, and it's the most visible physical thing that we provide. There is this thing called the embassy effect. What are impacts beyond providing the building? We have these economic effects with the kinds of money that we're putting into the project that's also being spent in the local environment in terms of material, labor, those kinds of things. There's also an environmental effect where we're being thoughtful about the resources that are important for that particular country, making sure we're minimizing that and producing as much as we can, especially as it relates to energy. And then the social impacts and what we can do to start to showcase what's important about our two countries and start to bring them together. And that starts to feel a little bit like the architecture and the art being the sort of stimulus for conversation. Every one of these embassies and consulates have the same parts and pieces. But the way that they come together are really unique because we're solving different kinds of problems for the missions. The environments are all different, and then the sites are very different. So there is this collection of pieces that then get assembled in a way that is most conducive to having a very, very performative diplomatic platform.
King and American president discuss mutual problems of trade and relations with Saudi Arabia.
I'm standing here before a photograph of a meeting with President Roosevelt and His Majesty King Abdulaziz, the founder of modern Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And they're meeting aboard USS Quincy. And the two leaders met in the waning days of World War II. And by all accounts, forged a strong partnership. And today we have a relationship that has expanded to every area of cooperation imaginable, from the original strategic focus on security and energy security, now to really every walk of life, particularly the people-to-people ties, which are so strong between our two countries, but also our commercial cooperation, which underpins the prosperity here in the kingdom, but also in the United States. And now more recently, research development on renewable energy. So we are embarking on a very exciting stage in our bilateral relationship. As a mission, we are strengthening and updating, and I would say upgrading, our diplomatic platform.
The new embassy here in Riyadh will be the crown jewel of U.S. government investment in Saudi Arabia. So it's very much a statement on the strength of the relationship, where it's been, but also where it's going. The current embassy is old enough that we've outgrown it, that we need to rely on new technologies that need to be put in it. We need to be more efficient, more green. We also need to ensure that we incorporate new methods of security. But then additionally, moving out to a new site allows us to reinterpret and allows us to re-engage with the community.
As you go from project to project, in some ways there's very little connection between an embassy in London and Beirut and Saudi Arabia. And it became really evident that you start from scratch in a way, that each one discusses the specificity of culture and place.
The site sits within the diplomatic quarter, which is an enclave within Riyadh that's dedicated entirely to all foreign missions, embassies, and staff housing. the Wadi, which is like small canyons that run through the country and runs right along our site. On the opposite side is a park. So we have this great location. And right now it's just an open plain just waiting for something to come.
The diplomatic quarter project came as an idea based on a royal decision to transfer the diplomatic missions which used to reside in Jeddah. And the idea was to design a unique diplomatic quarter, something that is different. And it was possibly the first time ever that landscaping was considered as a component from day one. And I think one of the things that diplomatic quarter can proudly take credit for is thinking of developing a modern or a developed traditional architecture, getting back to the roots, not copying the traditional architecture, but introducing a sort of a developed traditional architecture.
Roughly, it's a 27-acre campus. And when you're dealing with a flat site with not a lot of features to it or not a lot of constraints, then you're kind of left with a blank slate in a way. What we started off with was three things. It was really about community, landscape, and performance. And those are the three values that we started to look at in terms of how it would define that. So we started with kind of a broad idea of open space. And we looked at a series of these flow lines that were running east-west, which essentially was similar to the orientation of the site. And those flow lines essentially became the negative spaces or the open spaces. And then from that started to emerge the buildings themselves.
This is a well-defined campus for security reasons, but at the same time, the whole reason they're there is for outreach and engaging with the Saudis. And so we try to come up with a design where security and the definition of the campus doesn't come in the way of that, but provide arrangements where they can easily bring people in. Because there's so many different uses, there tends to be, this is the office portion over here, this is the support function over here, this is the housing. And we try to look at a more integrated planning approach where it really feels like one community, one campus. You also have to remember it's a very active working campus, and diplomacy is an active process. So we have to dig very much into how people are collaborating, how they're meeting, how they're engaging others, and make sure we have the proper spaces for that. That includes event spaces, working environments, collaboration spaces, meeting spaces. And it all kind of goes into this very idea that this isn't just going to be a symbol to be looked at, but it'll be a very active campus where diplomacy is carried out every day.
Saudi Arabia in general as a culture is incredibly interesting. The landscape and the geological features that are there are really quite inspiring and quite beautiful, all the way from just the desert landscape to a lot of the geologic formations that are found around and outside of Riyadh. There was a lot of inspiration that came from that, but even some of the architecture that's there in terms of how they use materiality, how they respond to the climate, the harsh climate in terms of the sun, thick walls, smaller windows, a lot of passive design. So we designed a series of secondary shading facades that essentially shade the building. It's a perforated corrugated metal. So it essentially cuts down a large part of the sun that's coming in. It's perforated so it allows airflow on the front and on the back of that. It's a metal, it reflects a lot of the sun. So we're trying to modulate a lot of the heat that's coming in, but then also the comfort of the people who are working, living, or playing inside these buildings. Reducing glare, but also maximizing views as well. So from a performance standpoint, it goes all the way from performing from pragmatics to the community, to the sustainability, to energy reduction.
It's going to be very dynamic in different light conditions during the day and to some degree seasonally. And it's going to be the burnt orange kind of umber color is going to blend in with the desert, and it's going to feel very much part of the site. It's going to represent a very gentle notion of who we are as a culture. It's not this fortress or this thing that's going to kind of overpower you in terms of what America is. It's something that does this to the given site, to the culture, etc., and is a much softer entry gate as you enter. And it's already trying to do this. It's taking two cultures and connecting the nature of the Saudi culture and the American culture as a piece of architecture.
I think if you think about the way embassies are designed, bringing the United States culture and values, putting them on display in context of the local environment, you have this wonderful mix. When Saudis walk in, I want them to see something different, see some of America, but I also want them to feel comfortable. I want them to receive wonderful customer service, which means we have to present it in a way that's culturally and socially acceptable.
I would like our visitors to our new facilities to experience the warm welcome that we, of course, in America are very proud of when we have the opportunity to welcome visitors, whether it's to our homes or our offices. And the same is very much true here in Saudi Arabia. Over the decades, hundreds of thousands of Americans have lived here, worked here, and during that time, of course, millions of Americans have visited Saudi Arabia to perform their Umrah and Hajj pilgrimages. And they have always been welcomed with open arms and with the warmth and generosity that Saudis are known for. And I hope to reciprocate and be able to welcome our Saudi friends and colleagues with the same warmth and generosity and hospitality that they have shown us over the decades.